So this is the inaugural episode of On the Grid, a little thing I'm going to try and do once a week to give a hand to people who have home studios, regardless of whether you're doing podcasts or voiceovers or whatever. A few tips or tools or some things that you might be able to use. So I thought it would be, well, firstly, convenient for me because he's been a mate of mine for 30 odd years.
Yes. Scary,
yes, he
but
says
true.
from the corner of the room, and also has probably one of the best home voiceover studios that I have ever come across. Andrew Peters, voiceover extraordinaire. Welcome to On the Grid. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
You, as we just said, you've been a voiceover artist for 30 odd years, and a few years back started your own studio, which isn't the one you're in now. How did all that come about?
It came about because I was living in Melbourne, in the typical Melbourne little workers' cottage kind of vibe, you know, the single fronters in the inner city. So you don't have a lot of room. And we just renovated, and I put a booth inside a cupboard, which kind of served its purpose. And the reason I did that was because I was dealing with a client where we're doing like 10-second reads, and we do 20 a day or whatever it was. I can't remember now off the top of my head, but it was me driving right across town to go and do these things and then back. And it was, you're there for 10 minutes and then you got to drive back. And it's like, why am I spending 2 hours in the car to do 10 minutes work? Yeah. So I set up a little kit inside in a cupboard. And then I was able to email those takes across, and it worked okay. It was fine. By the time they got there, they were okay. They just did a bit of tweaking and made them sound half decent. Yep. And that was the beginning of it. And then we sold up in the middle of Melbourne and moved out to the trees and had a much bigger house and bigger land. And there was an outside building, and I kind of thought it's time to get out of the cupboard. Or the closet. Hey,
they say see what in the classics.
See what I did there? Yes. And so there was this building, and I got a mate over and said, look, I'm looking to build something that's a bit more substantial than what I've been using before. And so we went around, found that he looked at the building and went, I reckon we can make this work. And that's what we did. We built the studio inside there. And that was brilliant because it opened up doors for me working interstate and overseas. And that was the beginning of the career that I've got now, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And then now, of course, you're sitting in your latest incarnation of studios, and you've got you've got a booth that you've made yourself and a really nice control area and a bunch of different mics and preamps. Couple of questions come to mind from that. Firstly, why?
Yes.
Why? And secondly, have you found the more you've spent, the more quality work has come your way?
Probably not. I'm a bit like that, where I get sort of obsessed about things and then I can't stop until I see another shiny ball, and then I sort of head off in that direction. But it all began with and I sort of had a basic kit, the obligatory NT1 from Rode, and what the hell? I can't even think what the interface was I used. I can't remember now. It was so long ago. But it was like when I built the new studio, it was time to step up. And so I went and saw a guy that I knew who was an importer of gear. Yeah. And I said, look, this is what I'm wanting, a different mic. I want something really super clean, and more, professional than what I've been using. And so I ended up buying a Microtech Cavell M930. And a Grace Design M101, super clean, and that was lovely. And then I had a sound card, of course, the PCI card inside the computer. So, and that was the beginning of it. And then I became slightly obsessed with microphones and preamps. And
slightly, is that what you call it?
Yeah,
slightly.
Yeah, it did get a bit out of control. But I love it, and it probably drives my clients mental because I'll send them one file, and then a month later it's completely different chain I'm using. So I have to be a bit careful of that.
Yeah, but look, I mean, to be fair, there's I guess as a recording studio will try and keep as a post-production studio, let's say, we'll try and keep a reasonable range of microphones in the cupboard. So it's not unreasonable that if you're going to set up a decent home voiceover studio, you would do the same. So do you find that you've got 2 or 3 different preamps and as we've discussed, a cupboard full of mics? Do you have clients who have their preferred rigs?
Yeah, I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 4 preamps. And I've got one of my clients in the Middle East. Now what do I've changed with him. It used to be the Neve, actually. He used to really love the Neve and the OC 818. And then we were doing, I can't remember how it happened, but now it's the Sennheiser 416 and the Grace Design M101.
Yep.
That seems to be the main channel I use.
Yeah, which does sound nice.
It does sound nice. It's got that sort of the thing everyone expects to hear is that sort of bit of sparkle on the top. But I do love the Neve. But I must admit the 1073s are probably better used on a vocal, as in a singer.
Yeah,
they just have that beautiful warmth to them. But I do like it, and it's good for long form. I mean, I wouldn't use a 416 for an e-learning thing, for instance, or an audio book or anything that's long form.
No, you hurt someone's ears.
It would do your head in. Yeah,
yes, exactly. Yes, not good for longevity of listening. Absolutely.
Yeah, but it's good for a promo, as you know, good for imaging and all that stuff. But when I do long form stuff, then I'll use the 818 and the Neve 1073. Yep. If I have people dropping in on here, particularly when COVID was going on, and we'd have people who were out of town who were down here couldn't get into the city because of COVID. I ended up being the booth of choice for people down the coast.
Yeah, right. You're the local
guy. Yes.
Local telephone booth almost.
And I had, exactly. I was really. And I had people coming in and using my booth, and I got to the point where it's like, hang on a minute, like I don't know where they've been. I'm trusting them that they are actually COVID free.
Yep.
But it doesn't mean they are. Yep. So what I did was, and you can see where the tri booth is behind me there. I set up that area for guests, and that is what I use for that one. Is at the moment you can see there's an OC18 in there, and that goes through an LA 610.
Wow.
And that sounds
not
really
bad
nice.
For a portable rig.
Correct. Yes, indeed. But it keeps people out of my booth, and I don't like moving my mics and stuff because I've set them for me.
Yes,
not for other people. So I can play around with stuff and, don't have to muck up my channel. Yeah.
I'm the same. I'm pretty picky, even though I haven't got microphones and stuff that bother me. But, my gear's in a certain spot where I like it and I can reach for it.
Yeah.
So listen, as someone who's now built 3 home studios and also probably the fussiest person I know when it comes to making sure that your travel rig is the best it can possibly be. In fact, if you haven't seen it already, jump onto the Pro Audio Suite podcast that Andrew and I and a couple of other fellas do together, and have a look at Andrew coming up with a remote rig in the back seat of his car.
Yes.
And I think you'll find that getting good audio anywhere is basically possible. But as someone who's built 3 studios and travels a lot, so is always setting up away rigs, what's a bit of advice you'd give to someone who's sort of setting up their first studio in terms of getting a decent sound out of it?
Well, it's tricky because it depends on budget, of course. But I mean, my analogy with this is if you're a tradesperson, say a plumber or chippy or whatever, Sparky, you wouldn't turn up with kids' toys to go and fix something. So always think that, buy well and buy once and buy well is my thing. So, and if it's something that you buy now that you can use in a different situation later, like if you start off, say for instance, you start off but with a tri booth and that's your main booth in at your house, that if you do actually go and, step up and get a studio bricks or build your own booth or whatever, you've always got that. So that's your travel rig.
Yeah.
So it's not redundant.
Yeah.
And I see people going, I can't, I want to get a cheap mic and blah, blah, blah. It's like, don't get a cheap mic because that will be landfill. Like bite the bullet, buy one mic that is going to do the job. And it will probably be something like 416 would be a good starter, even though they're expensive. But you're always going to have that. And that microphone can do 2 things for you later on. It can actually travel with you in your tri booth or whatever you use for your portable rig. And can also stay in your booth and, be a second mic to whatever new one you buy,
Yeah. And I guess also a 416 would probably make sense for someone starting out because let's be honest, you're probably not going to have the greatest room acoustics. So, something as directional and as a shotgun is going to help that as well.
Yeah. Interestingly, I mean, this where I'm sitting now is not treated. This is just all that treated stuff is back there and the booth is there behind all those pictures. So I'm actually sitting out in an open space, and I'm using the OC18, and apart from the fact I've got the split system on because it's freezing in here, it works. It seems to work okay. So
it sounds good.
Yeah,
sounds good. Well, you record our podcast from there. So.
I do in this very spot.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, mate, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
I think hopefully people have taken something away from my first tentative interview and your wisdom. I guess maybe a good idea. We might play out with some audio that you've sent me that came from your room, and people can get a listen to what Road Night Studios actually sounds like.
Yeah.
And the immortal Andrew Peters.
Yeah, you can probably hear the ocean. Though 4.5 billion years old, think of the Earth as a person who has just turned 46 years of age. The first signs of life don't flower until age 42. Just 12 months ago, dinosaurs burst in and out of existence. 8 months ago, mammals evolved. 4 hours ago, man crept out of the cave. And 90 seconds ago, the Industrial Revolution began. In this last minute, man struggled to harness the power of nature. 20 seconds ago, reached out for global communication. And 1 second ago, the FM radio was born. Now, as we journey through the third millennium, 1FM is reimagining radio like you've never heard it before. Be listening from April 8 as we write a new chapter of Singapore radio history.